Let me ask you something, man to man. Have you ever been in that moment where no matter what you said, it just didn't land? Maybe you were arguing with your girlfriend, trying to explain your side, stacking reason after reason, and instead of fixing things, it only made her colder. She turned away, and you walked off thinking, what just happened? I said all the right things. Why do I feel like I lost her even more? The truth is, most men believe words are their greatest weapon. We think if we explain harder, talk longer, or argue better, we'll be understood. But often, the opposite happens. Carl Jung once said, when silence speaks louder than words, listen. And brother, that message matters today more than ever. Because silence isn't weakness, it is an avoidance. When used with confidence, silence can carry more weight than the longest speech. The problem is, most men are terrified of silence. We think if we don't say something, we lose control. If we don't respond right away, we'll look weak. If we don't defend ourselves, she'll win. So we fill the space with nervous talking, with excuses, with explanations, with begging, and in the process, we lose respect, attraction, and the frame. Have you ever noticed that the more you talk, the less you're heard? The more you chase, the more she pulls away? This is why silence isn't empty. It's communication. It's strength. It can be the loudest message you ever send. And if you don't understand how to use it, you'll keep talking yourself into weakness without realizing your silence could have spoken volumes. Think about it. Maybe she's upset, her voice is rising, and suddenly you're defending yourself like a lawyer. You're throwing facts and logic at her only to make her angrier. Here's why. In emotional moments, women don't want logic. They want to feel safe. And a man who loses his cool, who talks too much, who tries to fix everything with words doesn't feel safe. He feels unstable. But when you breathe, stay calm, and let silence do the work, you show control. Silence doesn't mean ignoring her, it means listening without rushing to defend yourself. It means standing grounded when the storm is swirling. When someone yells and you don't yell back, they lose power. Their storm crashes into nothing. That's why silence in conflict is not weakness, it's dominance through self-control. And it creates curiosity. She wonders, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he chasing? That question alone can shift the entire dynamic. Another place men lose respect is in over-explaining. You write long texts. You justify your choices, your time, your boundaries. And every time you do this, you lower your value. Why? Because over-explaining is begging for approval. It's saying, please understand me. But a confident man knows that silence after setting a boundary is louder than 1,000 justifications. She asks, why didn't you text me back instantly? You say, I was busy. Then silence. No essay, no justification, just facts. That makes her respect you more. Because you're not asking for her permission, you're living your life. Respect doesn't come from explaining yourself. It comes from being unshakable. And silence makes that clear. But silence isn't only about respect, it's also about attraction. Attraction thrives on curiosity, and silence creates mystery. If she knows everything about you in a week, there's no mystery left. But when you reveal slowly, when you listen more than you talk, when you pause before answering, she leans in. She wonders, what's he thinking? What's behind that calm smile? Mystery is magnetic, and silence creates it. Imagine two guys on a first date. One talks nonstop about his achievements. The other listens, asks a few deep questions, and lets her talk. Which one is she thinking about later that night? It's the man who lets silence do the work. Because silence forces her to project her thoughts and emotions onto you, and often, she imagines something greater than you could ever say. Silence also sets boundaries with disrespect. Most men tolerate too much because they're scared of losing her. She mocks you, tests you, throws little insults, and you respond with words. You argue, you explain why it hurt, you try to make her understand. But the strongest response isn't words, it's silence. She jabs at you in front of her friends. Instead of clapping back, you look her in the eye, calm and steady, then change the subject or walk away. That silence cuts deeper than any comeback. It says, I don't argue about my worth, I just remove my energy. That's not passive, it's decisive. It shows boundaries louder than shouting ever could. Every man also faces the moment where he must choose, argue or walk away. And most argue on their way out, which looks weak. It shows you still crave validation. But walking away in silence? That's unforgettable. Picture this. She's yelling, accusing, pulling you into chaos. You hold eye contact, calm and steady. Then you turn, and you leave. No words, no drama. That silence echoes. Hours later, she replays it in her mind. Why didn't he fight back? Did I lose him? Walking away silently says, I value peace more than winning arguments. I value self-respect more than approval. And women are drawn to men who can walk away. That silence becomes power. Silence also builds intimacy. Most men kill connection by talking too much, giving advice when none is asked for, or trying to fix everything. But when you just listen, really listen without interrupting, she feels safe. Imagine she's sharing her stressful day. Instead of jumping in, you nod, you give small affirmations, and you let her continue. That silence makes her feel understood and connected. It's not absence of words, it's presence. And ironically, the less you talk, the more she bonds with you. Because finally, she gets to feel instead of being fixed. And let's not forget results. Too many men brag, talking about goals and dreams they never follow through on. But real men let results speak. They don't announce, they don't boast, they just show up with proof. That silence is powerful. Because when you don't seek validation, when you let your actions do the talking, people notice. Women notice. Jung would say this silence is alignment. No need to talk about who you want to be when you're already living it. Finally, there's the deepest silence of all, the silence within yourself. Most men are terrified of it. They can't sit alone without distractions because silence forces them to face themselves. But the man who can be still, who can reflect and breathe in silence, becomes unshakable. He isn't desperate for attention. He isn't chasing approval. He's rooted. And when you bring that inner calm into relationships, you radiate strength. You don't need to prove. You don't need to chase. You just are. That's the ultimate silence, the one that speaks louder than any words ever could. I'll be honest. I used to run from silence. When a woman pulled back, I panicked. When she got quiet, I blew up her phone with texts and explanations. I thought words would keep her close, but they only pushed her further away. It wasn't until I practiced silence, holding my ground, listening, walking away when necessary, that everything changed. I realized silence isn't empty, it's full. Full of presence, full of self-respect, full of strength. And ironically, women started respecting me more. Not because I had the perfect words, but because I didn't need them. That's when Jung's wisdom clicked. Silence isn't the absence of communication, it's the purest form of it. Silence in conflict shows control. Silence after disrespect sets boundaries. Silence while listening builds intimacy. Silence in mystery creates attraction. Silence in results commands respect. And silence with yourself forms the foundation of it all. Words are easy. Anyone can talk. But silence, that's rare. That's powerful. That's magnetic. So the next time you feel like explaining yourself endlessly, or filling space with nervous chatter, pause, breathe. Remember Jung's wisdom. Because when silence speaks louder than words, the man who knows how to use it always stands taller, loved deeper, and respected more. Brother, if this resonated with you, don't just watch and forget. Apply it. Practice it. Let silence be your new strength. And if you got value from this, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment telling me which part hit you hardest. Was it silence in conflict, walking away, or silence within yourself? Share this with a friend who needs it. Too many men are drowning in noise when silence could be their greatest weapon. Remember, silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And the man who can master it, masters himself.